Filming in extremely cold environments is very challenging. There's a lot to look after and there's extreme discomfort almost all of the time. There's some definite things about using camera equipment in these really cold temperatures that I wish that I had known when I started my adventure filmmaking career over a decade ago. And the best part is, a lot of these hacks or secrets are the same ones they are using for filming your favorite TV shows and movies. This is kind of my mini masterclass of sorts, with all my best insights packed into one video, from quick modifications to your microphones to several incredibly useful ways to use garbage bags, the best different types of gloves I found for filming, some warnings about some definite issues you might run into that will totally ruin your shoot. And of course, I've also got some funny dance moves for keeping your hands warm. Putting your wrists out to the side like this and shrugging like almost gives them an immediate rush of warmth. So even if you don't plan on filming in the cold now, I'm hoping I'm going to convince you otherwise, but these are still lessons worth learning for later down the road. If you want to keep track of all of the info we're going over with links and notes, I've created a companion document you can download right now, linked in the description, to guide you along and give you some quick takeaways. If you're going to film outside in the cold and you're going to take your gear inside, don't. You might break your gear. So that is my hook for you to stick around in this video, because I need you to see this tip if you're gonna film outside in the cold, because I do not want you to wreck your cameras. Now, it's important for me to let you know, if you're a creator, that there's a tool that I think is gonna be helpful for you, and that a resource rather, an investment in yourself, and that is from our partner in this video, Artlist. I'm gonna tell you a lot more about them later, but they are the most helpful resource for the creation side of my videos when I need to find music, when I need to find sound effects, when I need motion templates, when I need LUTs. There's so much available through Artlist that will help your creation process. And of course, I'm gonna tell you more about Artlist in a moment.
Here we go. Capturing the first shot of my next video. Nice.
Depending on what your experience is, filming in the cold can be something that's either really intimidating or something that you very much look forward to.
Come on, this is simply incredible. I'm thrilled.
Wherever you lie on that spectrum, if you are interested in it, I highly recommend giving it a shot. There's something about images that you capture in an environment that is cold that translates so beautifully into the camera in a way that you can't pretend, and gives this texture to adventures. So if you're feeling intimidated, I highly recommend grab your camera, go outside and give it a shot. What you're gonna notice the first time you do this is you're gonna run into some problems pretty immediately, and some of them will sort themselves out just through common sense, and other ones might be a little bit more complicated that you wouldn't know how to navigate around, and those are the things I wanna help you with. We're gonna identify these problems right from the top, but we also need to establish some baseline of temperature ranges, as the solutions and considerations change the colder that it gets. Your main challenges actually fit into some consistent themes, the first being keeping batteries working, second being protecting your gear from the elements so you can actually keep capturing images, third being making sure that your hands stay warm enough to keep using your cameras. Here's my anecdotal temperature rating scale and some of the considerations that change as you go out. You can pause this to read it or download it from the description. The key takeaway for me is that when we're just hovering around the freezing point, it is miserable. You're dealing with so much moisture issues and it's really frustrating. The sweet spot starts to come in at around -10 to -20. This is my favorite conditions to film snow-related activities in, which is ironic because this is also where some of the cold weather filming issues really start to become problematic. Things like battery life noticeably decreasing by 30 to 50%. Certain memory cards just stop working, so you gotta look up the temperature rating charts of your equipment. And the LCD displays on your cameras start to lag and have ghosting because they're literal liquid crystal displays that are slowing down in the cold. So there's definite problems here, but I love this range because it doesn't have all the moisture problems of warmer temperatures, and most of these things are solvable, which we're gonna dive into. And then of course, a brief mention of the shrinkage zone where everything just starts to rebel, big problems start to happen, and you need to actively be problem solving in a pretty dramatic way to make this doable. And of course, the unsaid thing amongst all of this is there's a big difference in the type of stuff you're filming. Are you filming long takes from a tripod stationary on the side of a hill, waiting 45 minutes for a skier to go by? Are you following mountaineers? Are you filming a self-hiking video? If you have movement, you can generate warmth. There's factors like this that are a little more subjective that we won't be able to get to in full detail. Let us first talk about some gear considerations. A lot of small electronics will really suffer in cold environments if they're not near an insulation source. They're going to behave differently in cold and they're going to drain much quicker. This becomes really noticeable at -20 and below. So a great example would be something like these tiny microphones from DJI. These mic packs, if you have them on the outside of your clothing or if you have the receiver on top of your camera, are going to die much, much faster in cold environments. I had these crash on me in a -35 day almost immediately. So to keep power to our cameras, we can, step one, just take more camera batteries. I usually take 6 to 8 camera batteries per camera per day of filming, but then also provide it with an external power source. Now, you do not want to use a dummy battery in this situation because if the power source ever cuts to that, it will corrupt whatever file you were currently recording. It's way safer to provide external power through USB. And to do this, there's actually some awesome options. Step one, you can just use whatever normal power bank or battery that you have. Around that -20 turn point, the performance will start to drop off. So that's where we can introduce some more methods. One, you can take the battery, put it inside of an insulated case with a hand warmer to keep that battery warmer and providing a healthier source of power. The second is getting a battery bank designed for cold weather filming. I actually like buying battery banks that have a warmer element in them. So they actually self-warm. So that way when they're charging and discharging, they don't die massively fast. A good thing to consider is how can you prevent all of your electronics from getting too cold even to begin with, or having a method to warm them up throughout filming. The simplest one is actually just grabbing a cooler. So if you grab a cooler, that's a contained area that can actually keep your items warmer inside the cooler than the cold air outside. You can help this along by just simply putting hand warmers inside of the cooler, and that will warm up the ambient temperature inside and make things like your batteries last longer, make using your cameras easier to touch. And this is really helpful if you have the space around for a cooler. You can also buy a cooler that plugs into a 12-volt outlet and will provide warming capabilities if you have a stationary vehicle or a battery source. One method I actually did on this production was I needed to keep a lot of items warm. So I bought a massive sheet of 2-inch foam insulation, cut it into various lengths and sections and taped it together, and made a warming box that I could put my tripods, my lights, my batteries, my lenses, everything that I would want to keep warm, I put in this larger insulated box. You can keep this warm through a couple different methods. You could load it with several hand warmers. Again, 4 or 5 will actually make a meaningful difference. You can use a DIY method through a 12-volt heating source. You can get this heat tape meant for motorcycle handlebars. You can load that up with some batteries to provide warmth. If you have an AC power source, you can plug in a light bulb and put it inside of the box. That was the method I used on this production. And just the light bulb was so warm that even on a -30 day, it's actually warm to the touch. That is awesome. What do you do if your batteries don't have warmers in them? What do you do if you have something like a phone or other pieces of technology that you don't want to die quickly? Well, put them in the pockets on your body. Clothing is an underrated piece of kit for filming outside. This is where cargo pants and jackets with pockets near your heart become really helpful because you can put batteries in all sorts of places. The quad pocket here on your thigh is amazing because if you put something in there and then you kind of come down like this, or you're moving around, you know, doing adventure filmmaking kind of things, it doesn't jut into the crease of your hip here like it would if you put it in the top pocket. Things like batteries. So I usually have 4 batteries in my pockets, my phone, audio recorders, to keep them close to my body temperature and prevent them from draining quickly. I also wear a fanny pack in a lot of situations underneath my jacket. This is where I'll put things like audio recorders, again, more batteries, and any accessories that I might need to keep warm and want to use throughout the filming process. I can also highly recommend these running style waist belts that you can actually fit a lot more things into. And it's not just your electronics that you might want to put in here. You might also want to put things like your snacks, so that way you can actually take a bite out of your granola bar and not have it be rock solid. Let's talk about hands. This is, I think, the most painful part about filming in bad weather, in specifically cold environments, because you need your fingers to do your job. And this is something that's pretty personal about what your tolerances are. I find I'm on the pretty intolerant side. Once my fingers get cold, it's game over for me. Whatever glove situation I'm doing, I always have hand warmers just in my gloves. So that way, whenever I need to take my hands out, I still have a heat source in my hands as I'm touching things, and then it goes straight back into the glove. So we're gonna talk a lot about gloves in a sec, but hand warmers aren't just for your fingers. Using hand warmers, you can pair them alongside your sensitive electronics that aren't near your body for warmth, and it will keep them warmer for longer. So I was filming in -35 yesterday, and I had hand warmers taped to the bottom battery compartment on my cameras because they were getting too cold to access their memory cards. So putting that hand warmer there, duct taping it, made a really big difference. I start with the hand warmers when I know it's gonna be really cold, instead of trying to use them too late into the project to warm things up that have already cooled down. Now you might be thinking at this stage of the video, Levi, these techniques are pretty rudimentary. Isn't there more effective ways to do this in Hollywood or on actual movie sets? And the answer to that might surprise you. On actual movie sets, they are taping hand warmers to $250,000 camera rigs. And I know this because my friends actually work on those very movie sets from some of the shows and movies that you've seen on your TVs and in your theaters. When it's cold, they are taping hand warmers to things from transmitters to radios to whatever they can to keep things from dying fast. Regardless of what temperature and how cold it actually is, you're gonna notice pretty quickly touching your cameras are cold. So a big barrier for filming outside for me is my fingers and what I'm touching, because you have to use your cameras, your tripods. And so many of these things have cold metal on them. So managing your hand warmth is actually a really key part for working outside with cameras. I find it's beneficial to actually most of the time remove camera cages and accessories that are unnecessary from the outside of a camera and get it back to its plastic form. This is so much easier on your hands to hold. So us filmmakers, we tend to rig out our cameras. I opt not to do that when I'm filming in colder temperatures. And this can start as easily as 3 degrees down to -15. Even in that range, I don't want metal on the camera because that will steal the warmth from my hands almost immediately. If you do need to use a rigged out camera for whatever reason, sometimes it's helpful where you can mount a V-mount battery to the back or different microphones and accessories. I recommend using a wood handle or a plastic handle. This will help insulate your hand from the cold of the metal cage of the camera, and this is actually a really important factor. There's a quick modification I make to any lav mic when I'm gonna be filming in bad weather, and that is I like using these fuzzy windscreens, but they always fall off. It's like the manufacturers want you to lose them, so you have to keep buying new ones. This is what one of the standard foam windscreens look like, and this is what one of the fuzzy ones look like. And our goal is to get glue on that inner edge without getting it on the microphone capsule when we put it in. It's nice using something like an epoxy because it's thicker and it's not just gonna run everywhere and get where you don't want it to go. So what I do is I glue them onto a mic, so that way I have one mic dedicated for wind filming and it just doesn't fall off, which is very good because the amount of times I've just ruined audio is many times. You really don't need that much. With this microphone capsule style, I like doing it on one edge because the microphone capsule is facing out in this direction. So I'm gonna do it on the back edge because it really only needs to be glued in one spot, and then just put the microphone in. And you should, if you have enough glue, see a little bit of it squeeze out and fill in that gap there, and then you're good to go. Just like that, we've got a glued wind puffy that will not come off. The head of this microphone will rip off the cable before the wind puffy comes off, which is good. And you might be thinking, Levi, you've kind of ruined that microphone. No, I have not. I've made it more useful. Do you know how unuseful it is to be using a microphone that you can't hear in a windy environment because the wind is destroying your sound because your wind puffy fell off? Well, now that's no longer gonna happen, and this microphone just became infinitely more useful to me. Some of our best tips are still yet to come, but I wanna share something with you first. There's an important story I learned early in my documentary filmmaking career, one that cost me a lot of money. And the hero of this story is actually our partner in this video. But the key part is that I made this documentary and I was self-funding it, and I licensed all this music from all over the internet. And over the half the music that I found was actually on this new service that I just signed up for called Artlist. I signed up in 2016, and I loved that I could just download so many different options and try them out in my film, and the film finished and I was really proud of it. But the problem and the mistake I made is that I licensed a bunch of songs from some other services. And a time came where I was asked to take the film to broadcast. And in order to do that, all of the songs that I did not get from Artlist, I had to pay upgrade fees to those licenses to the tune of thousands of dollars. So I upgraded all my other songs, which was really painful. And I ended up going to broadcast and losing money in the process. And I could have saved myself so much pain if I had used music with the right licenses from the beginning. And that's where I think Artlist is such an incredible investment in your filmmaking journey as a creator, as someone who wants to make client work, as someone who maybe wants to do documentaries. Whatever it is that you create, there's a peace of mind in knowing that whatever the finished thing is, it can go wherever you need it to go. Whatever client that you end up getting sponsored from, you don't have to then change how much you're paying for things, and you're just ready to go. You want your videos to stand out in this noisy environment, and that's where if you have better resources to use in the finishing of your videos, the finishing touches that you can actually put into your project are gonna help it to stand out more. You've put so much effort into actually capturing your footage on location. Why would you just stop there? What if the footage that you have, that beautiful drone shot, just needs some sound elements underneath it? Something that will really help it feel more grounded. Well, what if you don't have those sounds? Well, guess what? Go over and find from a massive selection, one that's gonna fit for that style of shot where they're actually complementary. And it just doesn't sound like you're using that same one whoosh sound effect that 1,000 other creators are using. Like, these are legitimately high quality recorded sounds that will help your videos stand out. They have a ridiculous amount of resources from Artlist Max, where you've got plugins available that you can use, motion templates. I love using this to make my videos more interesting. You've also got lots, man, there's so much here. The value is pretty ridiculous. Thank you, Artlist, for partnering with me in this video. My least favorite temperature to film in is actually 3 degrees to -5. That is my least favorite time. And the reason for that is things melt and get slushy really quickly, and they don't easily blow off your camera gear. This temperature range is so frustrating, and you have a lot of considerations to start to make. If it's cold enough that the snow is really dry and powdery, it will just kind of blow off your gear. It won't go into the charging ports. But if it's more on that slushy kind of spectrum, it's going to cause problems. So you need to be actively wiping off any snow that's building up around your camera, because it might be slush now, but it's going to turn into ice later, and you won't be able to use the buttons, which is a problem. So if it's in that slushy range, I actually have to use my A7S III with the ports closed, so that way water doesn't get into it and fry the camera. So what I like to do is 2 methods. You can use a garbage bag, where you pull it over your whole camera, push the lens to the corner, cut the corner off the garbage bag, and pull just the lens through, and maybe you add a little bit of tape around the perimeter, and now your camera has a bag around it for your hands to go inside, operate, but then it's covered. This is kind of a go-to technique for filming in extreme rain. It's not come up by me. I learned it from some other documentary filmmakers, and it's really effective. My preference is always to use clear or transparent garbage bags, so that way you can actually see your screen that you're recording and know where your buttons are, and you can actually use the buttons through the bag itself. If you want to upgrade this, you can make a quick lens hood of a sort to keep snow from building up on the lens. This is something that you're just constantly managing, is keeping stuff off the lens. So building this quick little lens hood actually really helps out. You can actually buy dedicated camera rain covers. I just find they're not very transferable to my different filming setups, and a garbage bag just always works. And now I actually consider it to be more important to keep stuff off the lens itself than keeping the camera out of the elements. My A7S III with a weather sealed lens, I've used in straight downpour for hours on end, multiple times. The key part here is that the ports are closed. Now, we're not like those Hollywood movie sets that have those fancy rain spinner discs they put on the front of their cinema cameras. Unfortunately, that's a little out of my budget, but my next best option is actually an umbrella. I have become a massive fan of using umbrellas. They are the only true waterproof and breathable resource. I hike with these in the rain. I love them. I run hot, so if I wear a shell jacket, I'll sweat in it immediately in the rain, or even just down to -3 or 4. So having an umbrella is just a great decision in life, especially one that packs down nice and small like this. But what I do is I make modifications onto the handles, so that way I can mount them onto my tripods, onto my cameras, so that way rain and snow will stay off them. Now, I've done a ton of different versions, and I've actually been considering making a product with Condor Blue to simplify this whole process. So if there's interest in an umbrella product for adventure filmmakers, I don't actually know if that's something that people want. If you do, let me know in the comments. But I've built a couple of different versions, and I'll just share with you how I did that now.
So the first method is pretty simple. I just cut the foam off the handle of this ultralight umbrella, and then I made the hole for the lanyard actually bigger. So I cut the lanyard off, I drilled out the hole to 1/4 of an inch, and then I can put in 1/4-20 hardware. So next I grab a NATO rail and just simply mount it through that hole using whatever nut you want to put on the other side. And once you do that, you've only got one mounting point, so you want to prevent it from rotating. So what I did was just attach a zip tie, tighten it down, cut off the spare, and then just put some tape around it to prevent the zip tie from shifting or moving around in a way that I don't want. Now all you got to do is take a simple friction ball mount with NATO rail connectors, and you can attach this to whatever camera rig system that you are using. The next method is a little bit more adaptable to any kind of umbrella that you might already have or run into. It's made possible through this Condor Blue friction arm with a 1/4-20 receiver on one of the ball ends. Then you want to find a pipe clamp that matches the diameter of your umbrella handle. So simply just measure the diameter and then find the correct insulated pipe clamp that you need to go around that handle. Then you want to take a 1/4-20 bolt and put it through the clamp, attach it to the Condor Blue ball mount, and shove the handle of your umbrella in there and tighten everything down till it grips on really strongly. If you want a parts list for these two different options and the umbrellas I used, find the link for that in the description down below. I'm also frequently mounting these umbrellas straight to the tripods themselves. On the Ulanzi carbon travel tripods, they have locking pin areas on the 1/4-20 mount. So you can take a friction arm and just mount it straight to the tripod. If you want to be able to mount this friction arm while the legs are closed, you actually have to trim a little bit of the connector so that way it's narrow enough to fit in there. But this works really effectively for mounting things to the tripod just when you want to be using it without a cage or any accessories on the camera itself.
Do not over tighten the screw. You can find a sweet spot where your umbrella is almost falling over. And I kind of use it as kind of a fail-safe mechanism. So that way, if the wind does grab it, the umbrella just knocks over and doesn't take the whole camera with it. Ask me how I know. Let's talk about using tripods in snow. It is critical, if you're going to be pushing your tripod into the ground on snow, that you don't have your legs starting in the fully out position, because as you push them into the snow, it's going to expand them out and crack them. Not great. What you want to do is put the legs in a little bit from their position and then shove them down into the snow like that, and you'll actually feel them expand out. So as you can see here right now with this tripod, the legs are a little skinnier, a little narrower together than they would normally be, but that allows me, as I pushed it in, to make sure that I'm not going to snap any of the components on the tripod. Something that makes a really big difference is having a proper camera bag meant for adventure type shooting. This is the Shimoda Action X40. I'm on the Shimoda Pro team, but the important part is that a bag like this, when you set it down, it opens from the back panel. So if you keep setting it in snow in other areas and slush gets on it, when you open up from the camera area, you can access all of your gear and then put it back on, and the back panel is not all dirty. So I really appreciate that. And it makes a big difference to have a fabric that is really durable and coated. But my favorite part is the quick access top. So that way I can just keep putting my camera right in here in between shooting and protect it from the elements quickly. And I can just really quickly grab it. So I'm always using this top, roll top access in between shooting different shots. This is really important to me. Do your best to never let your hands get too cold. Warmth is coming from the circulation in your fingers, as I understand it. And if you let your hands get to the point where they no longer are generating their own warmth inside of the gloves, then you're going to be in a bad spot. What I recommend is never push it so far that you lose into that numbness category, because you need to keep the warmth inside the gloves to keep the hands warm. It doesn't matter how good your gloves are to put on after you touch the camera if the hands going inside those gloves are already cold. It's always more worth it to put on gloves for a little bit, get some warmth back, and then get back to touching your cameras. When we talk about gloves, I usually, in any winter filming scenario, am taking at least 3 gloves with me. One pair of gloves is going to look somewhat like a liner glove. My go-to is actually a mountain biking winter glove because it has great thermal capture on the back of the hand, but great dexterity on the palm. I find that most of those merino thinner liner gloves I tear through immediately, so I don't use those anymore. I mainly use biking gloves as my liner gloves. In a lot of conditions where I'm hiking or moving or exerting or ski touring or filming skiing, these gloves end up becoming clutch, and you can put them inside a larger overmitt. Then I take a mid-weight camera operating glove. My go-to has been these amazing fishing gloves that I learned about in the ice climbing world because they're absolutely waterproof and they're grippy and dexterous enough that I can use all the buttons on the back of my camera. So these fishing gloves are only 20 bucks. Absolute win. I like the kind that come in black with a cuff that you can tighten up. There's some that are blue. I get size XXL, which lines up with my normal North American glove size of XXL. And then of course I take a big mitt. My favorite kind of mitts for filming environments are C-zip mitts. That's where you can take your digits out and then put them back in quickly and be covered. So this style of glove is absolutely amazing. I really, really like it. They're very warm, leather. They're a little on the pricier side, but the functionality is amazing. And I find even with a mitt palm like this, you can still use your pointer finger a little bit, but your dexterity goes way down from something like one of these other 2 options. Another pair that I'll take alongside this is actually called a mitt over mitt. So it's a plastic, it's kind of like a jacket for your glove, because most mountaineering style winter gloves are leather surface and they might absorb water in more wet environments, or they might not be warm enough. So if you put an over mitt cover over top of your mitts, you suddenly get way more warmth out of them and also weatherproofing, because the zipper on the back of these C-zip gloves will let some water in. So these handout gloves that I'm showing off here actually rebranded to Death Grip Glove Co. Highly recommend these. I think they're the only ones on the market that zip in this direction. I bought a pair that zipped in the other direction. What a dumb idea. Snow gets in them, they're in the way. Oh my goodness, what a waste of money. So Death Grip Glove Co. I think is your best bet here. And as far as electric heated gloves, I'm personally waiting for the technology to get a little bit better. Specifically, I'd love a pair that you could USB-C recharge in the field. If you've had great experience with a pair, let me know which model down in the description, because I always love hearing from you. It is really important after a day of filming outside, when it is cold, to not just bring all of your cameras and sensitive electronics inside. When they transition from cold to the warm environment inside, they condensate immediately. I've done this before where I just brought the gear inside because I was too cold and I was too numb. And I'm like, it's gonna be fine. And condensation formed inside a lens and it was unusable for 2 weeks. So trust me, just don't bring this stuff straight inside. I'll show you what to do instead. All you got to do is grab an extra large garbage bag. Put your camera gear inside of a bag, close it to create a contained atmosphere before you bring it inside. And you can just put your camera straight in the bag and do a small bag, or if you have something like a camera bag, you can just take the whole thing, give it a handful of twists. So now when I bring this inside, let the bag, the lenses, the cameras inside all come up to room temperature before taking them out of the bag. If you're wondering how long that is, well, just touch it and feel how cold it is, or I don't know, just have patience, wait. And this is so important to prevent moisture from developing on your sensitive electronics and expensive lenses. Always an interesting challenge at the end of the day. Usually the fingers are pretty numb by now. And trying to get the laces off the boots is always a fascinating process. If you want more resources for helping with your adventure filmmaking, I've got way more where this came from. So in the description, sign up for the email newsletter where I'll send you out some awesome stuff. Adventure Film Academy is my source for training people how to make better adventure stories and videos. So if you want to go deeper with this stuff, head over to there, learn more. I'm really passionate about making great adventure stories, and I'd love to help you in your journey of finishing stuff that you're proud of. If you want other filmmaking videos or some of my cold videos, you can click on the playlist. That's going to be it for this one. Thanks so much for watching, and remember, life's better when you make stuff. Peace.